how are things going with the pillar you're dealing with, business?
Bob Rourke was willing to help out, but I see the shortage of help everywhere in this group, and hopefully more and more people will come in and get some more people involved.
Yeah.
I think it will take a little bit of time, but I do believe with all of the issues that are all over the world that people are looking, and people do understand, especially the leadership has been deceiving them for so long. So they're wide open to anything new, anything that's a different alternative. And I find people quite interested in, hearing about different things. I talk to quite a few people a week. So we're in a wonderful time as far as people knowing something's terribly off track. And it's just a matter of getting enough people to help other people and to help awaken their families, their friends. I think I hand out just about something to everybody that I talk to, whether it's something 1 page, 2 pages, or whatever. But I always try to give people some information so that they can start to look into it on their own. And I would say that's probably the most important thing. The Internet, I also share a lot on the Internet, on Facebook. If I see something that Anna has put on, or the other people in other states have put on, I always share that with all of the people on my Facebook account. So they're seeing something new for the first time, a lot of them. But I think it's extremely important. Everybody just advertise, whatever. Hand out a business card, anything. People are looking.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent 2 hours with the guy at my office today, just going over the computer, showing him Anna's website and just trying to, he's interested. He's done some research, but, he didn't know where to turn. And so I talked to him for about an hour on the phone a couple days ago, and then he said, I'd really like to just have coffee with you. I said, well, come on to my office where we can use the computer. And so we spent 2 hours today. Well, there are people, and I said to him, we need people to do the work. We can't just get a lot of people to come in and get up in the bleachers and watch. We need players on the field. Really serious effort. And that's we had a kind of an abbreviated. Well, I was abbreviated anyway for the meeting. I see the other guys are here. I'll throw this at you, Dave. My idea was we need a couple mottos. We need a motto, something very simple, like, okay, see if you can answer this. Okay. There was an old motto that went, Coke adds, what does it add, Dave? Coke adds. Are you familiar with that one?
Are you talking about Coca-Cola?
Yeah, Coke adds.
It adds health problems.
Yeah. No, okay. Okay. You don't remember it. You guys are probably too young. But the answer is Coke adds life. That was a 60s motto that you could ask anybody in the early 2000s. Finish this sentence. Coke adds, and 9 out of 10 would tell you life. I talked to a 20-year-old, I think earlier this week, and I said, well, cholesterol isn't bad for you. A lot of what was, that was just a propaganda to sell margarine. Oh, really? I thought cholesterol was bad. This young kid. No, the FDA had to step in and bar them from a lot of the lies they were saying. Fleshman's margarine reduces your cholesterol and crap like that, because it's a bold-faced lie, and it costs a lot of money for somebody to challenge their ability to say that. But it's like the old dairy. Do you remember Everybody Needs Milk? It was on billboards all over the state. Everybody needs milk. That would have been about 2000.
I remember,
On one weekend, every one of those billboards came down. Someone complained and said, no, there are people with dairy allergies, so not everybody needs milk. And that's where you got the new motto was, got milk, ? And a picture of somebody with a milk mustache. Remember that one?
Yep.
My point is, mottos are powerful. And that's, rather than spend 3 hours trying to explain to somebody how they became sovereigns because somebody named Belcher in 1088 had a great something or other who was a colonel in the William Belcher in the Revolutionary Army, and trying to do all this explanation about what the hell, to get them to think about, maybe I should look into this. We need something as simple as got milk, got freedom. I'm not sure. If we can come up with a really eye-opening motto to get people to start waking up, and then once we got them woke up, we need another motto that says, how about getting out of the bleachers and coming down on the playing field with us and help us out here? We really love to have you, back on land and soil, but you're not doing us or the effort a lot of good sitting up there in the bleachers. We got to get you to, on the field. And, but it's something very simple, a 3 to 5, 7 word catchy motto. If you let that rattle around in your head, I suspect you could come up with something.
May I?
Please.
Yeah, I've already got one that I've been using. Okay. You got your land patent? And the people, I had two farm people in here yesterday, and I've been doing this to every farmer I can, including all of my family, because they've never heard of a land patent. And I have, because they're all nervous about the high real estate taxes and the farm economy.
Yeah.
So I just say, I basically throw that out. Do you have a land patent yet? And they don't know what to think or say because they have never heard of it. And I tell them where to start looking. But that is one important aspect. Everybody spends a lifetime working for a home or a farm. And that catches their attention more than anything. And it also will open their mind to all of the things they have never known. And I basically have told a good many of them, well, you've got a land patent. You mean you haven't found it yet? But anyway, it's an opening. It's a door opening that I think is massive, and it is something that deals with their financial situation, and it will open their mind to all of the other things that they've never known. I yield.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. That's great. Yeah, we're going to come up with a few mottos, but we need more than one. But that is a good waker upper, that's for sure.
May I?
Okay, Scott, if you keep it short.
Okay. I have a cross-committee question for David. The building committee was looking at building techniques recently because we don't have money to buy buildings. We're researching other things. And I came upon a company in France that makes hemp building blocks. And then somebody brought up the fact that there's actually Jill brought up the fact there's a tribe that runs the Morton Jackpot Junction, the one down there in Morton area, that has looked into this since 2018 when it was made lawful to or legal to grow hemp for construction materials. And they are working on getting it more and more accepted, but they're building prototype buildings now, and they're building a big facility to create these building blocks. And I wonder if you are familiar with them, and maybe would it behoove us as an assembly to make a relationship if we decide to build a building from those things. It should be very inexpensive and incredibly sturdy from our research. Should we buy them there, or should we buy them from Belgium or France?
May I? May I, Scott?
Sure.
I'll be quick, and I do want to hear Dave. Okay, there's a couple things to tell you. My son-in-law went down to Taos, New Mexico, and spent a month as a learning. I'll just say as an apprentice to build earth shelters. I think they're called. They're made out of tires, and you don't even have to heat them. I mean, they are so massive, and it's just tires filled with dirt, and you get there's the whole city of them. It was started by an architect in the 70s, and after they built a small community there, and after about 10 years, the county came in and gave them something like 2,000 citations for breaking codes. And he spent a couple years in Washington, D.C. trying to get the code, the structure. Basically argued the stick-built house structure that is the standard code is about a 500-year-old technology. What else are we doing that's that significant part of our life that uses only 500-year-old technology, and your codes and stuff are absolutely barring us from progressing in that area? Because I know there's something out of Texas called Caterpillar houses that you buy a huge balloon, or you can just make you have a bulldozer, you just make a huge pile, and then you put this special cement mixture over it, and you can build a structure big enough to have a football stadium in it. But the cement is mixed with, I think, insulation and a few other things. At any rate, it's ultra strong, but it's also extremely insulated. It caught for the square footage that you can accomplish with this fairly simple structure. Your heat is about a third of what it would be in conventional buildings for that same square footage. And then there's but the point is stuff like your hemp buildings. I've run into problems with code where things that one county, that 10 counties in Minnesota had already approved, and I tried to do that up in Aiken County. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Our code, it would violate our code." I said, "Well, Morrison County," and I named a bunch of counties that had already completely approved this process. It was part of a septic tank system, a huge improvement, just light years jump improvement on leach fields and stuff that there was absolutely no reason not to endorse it. But he said it will take us at least 2 years of committee meetings to pass it, and we probably will. But it's going to take about 2 years to go through the process to get it passed. And in that case, it cost. We were selling my parents' lake place. There was a full acre, and we wanted to split it and keep half an acre just for our use. But nope, couldn't do it because it would violate their codes. So I'm saying when you're looking at exotic building materials and so forth, like the Earth Home, not Earth Home, the Earth Ship, I think is what they call it. A completely self-sufficient. It has a stainless steel cistern, 5,000-gallon cistern underneath it. It has, it's made just of waste old, garbage tires, but packed very heavily with actually sledgehammer compacted dirt, and so it has so much mass that the sun in the daylight warms it up and holds enough temperature through the night. You don't even have to heat them. And even in the mountains in Taos where it gets pretty cold, below freezing in the winter, up here where it gets 30 below, you'd have to have some form of heat. But even down there in the mountains where they had the village, he said he had a fireplace, but he only used it on Christmas Eve for looks. He did not need any outside heat. I mean, it's really quite amazing, the technologies, but you're going to run into county code crap unless we're, of course, in control of the government enough at that point to stick that where the sun don't shine. But that's a big issue. It's a huge issue. And there's lots of alternative, extremely better than stick-built, far more efficient, cheaper to build, cheaper to maintain, either the Caterpillar house or these earth ships, a fraction of the cost to build, a fraction of the cost to maintain and heat, but they're against code. So just keep doing the 500-year-old technology is what our intelligent powers that shouldn't be will force down our throats. So with that, I'll yield. And I'd like to hear Dave's opinion.
Well, as far as the tribes, I've heard, and this happened a couple of months ago, I was called to a township meeting. The tribe here is putting up a growing facility on the trust land here in Mille Lacs County. And I would suspect that many of the other groups as well are probably going to get involved in that type of business. But anyway, the township was concerned. There had been conversation with the sheriff department in Mille Lacs County about it. I haven't heard much about it since, but it seems to be something that's coming. The other thing I'd like to mention about the tribes, if you follow what Tucker Carlson exposed up in Calgary, I think within the last couple of weeks or so, about Canada. And there was a lot of things that came to light, especially about the tribes. And the tribes have taken over a lot of the churches that were part of the school projects and the indoctrination of the tribal people. They have, as Tucker Carlson stated and a couple of other people on that talk show, the tribes have burned to the ground over 100 churches, I believe in northwestern Canada. And I also downloaded on Facebook, right after the Pope left a few months, a Native American lady talking to all of Canada and telling the Roman Catholic Church and others that have done damage to those tribes, they were no longer welcome in Canada. So there's an awful lot going on with the tribes, but the conversation with Tucker Carlson was, well, why hasn't Trudeau done anything to stop all of those churches that are being burned down. Well, apparently he understands it's an issue that the government itself is liable for a part of the damage that happened over all those years or decades to those tribal people. I yield.
Thanks,
Dave.
I have a question. Okay, so out in Morton County, whatever out there, they maybe approved these techniques, and several counties have. But I was more of the thought of finding out what's available, what's possible, and the insulation quality of the hemp things are very similar to those earth houses. I've seen videos on the earth housing thing. There's more than one of those cities out west. But I kind of thought, well, aren't we going to a point where we can tell them to, shove it where the sun don't shine, do it the hell we want? So there's that part. Anyway, I yield.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, there's a big difference between an earth home or earth shelter. That's like a concrete building built into a hill or having a hill mounted on top of it. And, we have a bunch of those right around St. Cloud here. I almost bought one, in fact. I was seriously looking at it, but the idiots built it facing the east. And they're not efficient unless they're facing the south. But anyway, the earth home and the earth shelter, whatever this Taos, New Mexico, or just rural Taos, New Mexico. I'd have to ask my son-in-law what they call that, but it's literally built out of tires and compacted soil, and you can use old bottles for to let the light in, and it's worth looking at. It really is worth looking into. I think it's called a earth shelter or earth ship. I think it's an earth ship. If you'd Googled earth ship, I think you might find that. But you'd find it, Taos, New Mexico is. If you can find earth ship at Taos, New Mexico, you found the right website. I'm not suggesting necessarily we build with that process, but that, or in fact for our use, something bigger like the Caterpillar out of Texas would be something well worth looking at. And they've been doing that for 30 years at least, and have quite a track record of even some very, very large structures. So that would be something to look into, and look at the price on that. And it's the secret there is in the fact that it's the outside material. I believe it's a lot of cement, but it's also a lot of insulation built, right in so that it's highly insulated, very very heat efficient, cooling. It stays cool in the summer, holds the heat well in the winter. It would be something to look at anyway. And with that, I will yield.
Oh, thanks, Doc. Yeah. I've seen a video, I don't know where I saw it, but on building those houses, it seems to be, I don't know if it's the same facility, but exactly the same concepts you're talking about. Bottles to let in light, and earth and tires stacked up and stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's the earth ship. I'm sure it's called the earth ship. But just the fact that it has a 5,000-gallon stainless steel cistern underneath it, just that massive amount of water helps to stabilize the temperatures significantly. And and you're completely off grid with those things if you want to be. You capture your own rainwater to fill the cistern. You can have photocell or windmills or whatever for your electricity. You can be 100% off grid and live fairly comfortably. I mean, you're not going to be able to leave all the lights on in every room like my kids do, but I yield.
Right, that's great. And my question actually originally was more about what about making a relationship with one of the tribes based on something we might look at using. That's why I asked David about it. Or should we stay away from the tribes because they are going to get taken over anyway at some point?
May I?
Sure.
Yeah, I would say everybody should be watching whatever is happening with the tribes, because they certainly have made a tremendous amount of changes. Nobody knows for sure where it's going to go. But right here in Mille Lacs County, everybody that's paid attention can see how quickly things have changed. They're basically stomping all over the county government and also creating significant issues for the state. And it's not just this group. They have got more things that are moving and undermining the establishment, especially in the last 10 years. So there's really a very good reason to watch these groups. If they're being set up, that's possible. But we have a tremendous amount of value in Minnesota. In northern Minnesota, I have friends in Tamarack, Minnesota, where they're looking at the new mining of rare minerals. But they're also looking at a lot of that up in Aiken County and Emily. And, of course, they need the tribes to go along so they don't get caught in court for decades in getting permits or getting whatever they need to have underway. But the tribes are making tremendous changes, and not just in Minnesota. I would say the most important groups to watch are Canada, because when you see what's going on in Canada, and you see the national government basically saying, I think we'll just stay out of the way, there's got to be something in the international courts that has reset their standing. And, of course, that has to do with the Pope. And I don't know, when they're taking over, and it's not just in Western Canada, the Eastern churches are also being taken over. And you don't find any interference with local or any of the provinces stepping in and stopping it. So something has changed. I yield.
May I?
Yeah,
I can't tell you what's going on in Canada and entirely, but I can tell you 20 years ago, Winston Trout was talking about, and he was holding seminars up in Canada doing it, but he was kind of, if you don't know who he was commercial, using commercial processes, UCC processes, accepted for value. He was in 1099 OID, which I think is what landed him in jail, if I remember correctly. Poor old guy did end up in jail. I don't know if he's still alive even. But he talked about a case where a First Nation person, which, for those who don't know, First Nation is what they call the natives. We have Native Americans here. They have First Nation members up in Canada. There was a First Nation individual who got hauled into a court in Washington, the state of Washington. Just, the way they haul us into court, same old BS. Well, he pulled out a medallion that his tribe was given in early 1700s by Queen Anne. That went along with the treaty that they would be friends forever. And that judge got off of his ass, came down and unbuttoned his collar, which means he's not in office, and apologized up and down, practically begging forgiveness of this First Nations individual for the mistake that had happened. And that was the end of that trial. That was based on a treaty in the early 1700s that his tribe has maintained the record of, and the medallion, the actual gold medallion that was given to that tribe, they still have that. But obviously, his Admiralty Maritime Court was attacking someone who by treaty was a friend forever, and that judge knew what the screw up he'd made. He could have probably lost his job or worse if he hadn't backed down so quickly. And with that, I yield. Stuff like that's behind the scenes, and that's probably a good example of the stuff that's going on up there. And with that, I yield. Your turn, Scott. We haven't heard from Kathy for a long time.
She's taking notes. I'm out of ideas right now. Except I want to encourage everybody to go up to the next face-to-face and grab some business cards, and let's get after what David's talking about.
Yeah, may I?
Yes.
Yeah, just everyone, whether they, participate very much or not, everybody should just make a point to just hand out business cards like you would in a parade or as you go around town. I've actually done it in the bank. The people know something is wrong. And even these younger people working at a bank, they understand even in banking there's something that's not quite adding up. So anything that would lead people in and you have no idea how far they will follow up, but when you get enough of them starting to see something different, they will all create a firestorm on their own, sharing it with their family and friends, that they found something that they've never known before and that they haven't been told. They've been denied the truth for so long. But the land patent seems to be unbelievably catching to anybody who's a farmer or anybody who has anything in real estate, because they've never heard of a land patent. I yield.
Thanks again, David.
Yeah, I'll go. I know about land patents because my great-grandfather had one. And when you're talking land patents in northern Minnesota, you're talking 1890, early 1900s. It really isn't, for us old people, it's not that long ago. But yeah, my great-grandfather had a patent in 1890, and my dad let it go when he sold the farm. But the patent had been completely, the state of mind of Minnesota came in and stole the mineral rights when the old man died, and he gave it to his daughter. She inherited the farm, my grandma, but they told her she'd have to pay taxes on it, which, of course, being patented land, they had no right to say to do that, but they didn't. She didn't know any better. But the taxes were just pennies, 50 cents a year or some crazy thing, so they didn't mind that much at the time. But, of course, that's not where it stayed. Everything government does, they incrementally, they start out with something, you'll say, well, we can deal with that. That's okay. I don't like it, but I'll agree. And I mean, I can name everything. The original income tax was a small percentage of income over $5,000 when the national average income was about $900. So it didn't affect the vast majority of the people, the farmers, the factory workers. They didn't give a shit, didn't bother, didn't affect them. Well, didn't take long till, their kids and grandkids got affected. But it started so small, nobody cared. I always use the lavender penny. When Governor in Minnesota here, Governor Lavander in the 60s, put a 1-cent sales tax on it. I'm old enough, I remember that was a big discussion. Oh, a 1-cent sales tax. How horrible that is. Well, that's where they started with it, because had they tried to come in with, the 8-10% that they're doing now, people would have absolutely said no. But 1%, yeah, we can deal with that, and then boil the frog over the next 50 years, and it's 10%. And then, to pay for the professional ball teams in Minneapolis, you can add another percent, a couple of percent, on the sin taxes of the area, and that kind of crap. It's just, it's the way they operate. We gotta, but it's what we're gonna, and a lot of people don't know that. They've just grown up with sales tax. They've grown up with everything, including the nanny state. They think that's just the way it's supposed to be. We have to help them see, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not even close to the way it's supposed to be. Let's fix it. I yield.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think the land patent issue is probably one of the biggest because it undermines the corruption at the courthouse. And of course, once they find out the truth that they should have a land patent, but they've never even heard about it, it directs all of the attention to the courthouse or to the state house. And it will enlighten them as to, well, what else haven't they told us? And also, it creates a motivation, because most of their life is spent trying to acquire a home or that farm or whatever. And it will bring them into investigating a whole lot of other issues. But it focuses on the cash flow at the courthouse and how they've been deceived their entire life. I've told a lot of them, and my family knows this, some of my older family, they know about them because their grandparents shared that information with them. And a lot of my family homesteaded in this area after the Civil War. So it goes back to the 80 acres, and then they acquired another 80. And it stayed in the family for quite some time. But of course, eventually it all went to a warranty deed. But I think the land patent catches everybody's attention because, especially with the high property taxes that are hitting everyone, that's one of the main focuses of anger. And even real estate people who I've talked to, I have not yet found one that knows what a land patent is. They may now, But the only man that I found a few years ago that knew what a land patent was a surveyor for the county. And he understood because he was going back to those old, original meets and bounds, chains and rods surveys. And he was in the area doing work for the county. And he was amazed that I knew anything about him. So that tells you how well it's been hidden. I yield.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thanks.
May I?
Please.
Actually, I put in the chat there that we have 2 pieces of property or parcels of land here in Rock Creek, and I've done both of them, and they're both land grants, and ours goes back all the way to 1857. So I have everything done, the chain of title and the exhibits page, and the Pine County will not record it, so that it has nothing to do with land. And because it's still in a title or a deed, I imagine. So I don't know what to do about that, but I think most people can relate to an abstract. And I remember at our old house that we lived at 20 years ago, we had an abstract for that house, and I left it with the house because it belonged to that piece of property. And my dad had an abstract. I know several people. So, I mean, if they look at an abstract, they'll see back in there from the very beginning when the state of Minnesota the territory of Minnesota actually received the land from the United States of America. It shows it right in there. So I think an abstract is a good place to start with anybody. I yield.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, the Northwest Territory Act in the 1700s outlined how a state would come into statehood and would have to put its unowned land into a trust under the state trusteeship or under the federal trusteeship, but the feds couldn't. They were trustees. They not owners. Their job was to parcel it out to the people, and that whole process was laid out in advance because they wanted, the founding fathers wanted the people to own the land. They didn't want where the king owned all the land previous to that, and the people and the land are one, so he owned all the people too. By default, that they'd had enough of that system. Now we're back to King Charlie owns the damn land again under their system, but we're gonna turn that right over again.
I hear what you're saying, Doc. I know what you mean. How they own the people and the land, how the land got into a trust. I can see where that may have happened. In our land grant, it states that it has what's it called, a forever benefit or a forever something. It's a forever
clause. Yeah, it's perpetual.
Right. It states it right in there, and it was meant for schooling and education purposes. The section that we are on, it states right in there. And I was on a call with before our Thursday night meeting last week. I was on a call, Monday night meeting. Before the Monday night calls with Anna at 6 o'clock, I hop on with, her name is Christy Lucer, and I believe she's on Washington. And she's heavy into a dispute with her kids and CPS and stuff. But there was another lady on there who was from Missouri, and she said that she has been fighting the battle for the land patents and grants and whatnot on Missouri for quite some time, and she's been learning more and more. And it sounds like we have to have something that's called land an allodial land owner is what they call it. And how you get that, I don't know, but she seems to have been narrowed in on it has to be allodial and land owner, nothing about title or deed.
Right, yeah, title is British territorial. Titles are what the king gives. Deeds, you're talking land, soil, jurisdiction where it's allodial ownership, and that means there's no. That's why you do the abstract, so that you can show that there is no one who has any claim, even a potential claim to that land, that you are the sole owner of it. There's no bank lien, there's no, that's why you can't really get full allodial ownership if it's under a patent or under a mortgage. However, the mortgage is a fraud. And if you can make it work, like Jerome Daly did in the 60s, right in Montgomery, Minnesota, and proved that the bank had lent him nothing, that it had only monetized his credit, and therefore they had no claim. He won the case. That was in the 1960s. But then, of course, since then they've scrambled and made it almost impossible to bring that issue into a court. But yeah, it's when there's no one can make a claim but you on it. That makes it allodial. Deal. Well, I'll just say, also add, sadly, just because we're right doesn't mean they're going to agree with us or cooperate. They're going to do everything in their power to subvert what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know if any of you are interested. There is a YouTube video out of Florida from a few years back that's called "How I Got My House Out Off the Tax Rolls" or something to that effect. If anybody's really interested in that, I could dig it out for them. And I've downloaded the video itself. It's about an hour long, but I'll just get the exact name. And it was a couple of years ago, of course, that I downloaded it. I think it's probably still there, but who knows? The way they're pulling stuff off of, anything that's right, they have to censor. Truth violates their codes or their rules. But I'm digging
standards.
Yeah, I'm digging through my about 150 damn videos that are not well organized. It'll take me just a second to find it here. It's kind of down towards the end because I've had it for a while.
Take your time, Doc.
I'm looking. It's just a picture of a, kind of a residential white frame house. Holy crap, I got a lot of videos. I got to organize this. There it is. Way down there. How to remove your property from the tax rolls. How to remove your property from the tax roll. It's a YouTube video. It's an hour and 38 minutes long. But you see a picture of a big old Victorian era White House. was in Florida, and but that the guy, it's been a couple years since I watched that video, but he went into the assessor's office and demanded and told him, show me the law where you have any right to tax me, and the guy couldn't find the law. So he insisted that he be taken off the tax roll, and they did it. On the flip side of that is, though, and you may have to just be more careful. If you're going to be sovereign, you have to be responsible and stand up and take care of yourself and not demand the government take care of you. So if you are off the tax rolls, if you file a patent and get your house removed so you're not paying taxes, and your house starts on fire, don't bother to call the fire department. They won't come. You'll lose. And even some people that have done that have had their electricity cut, which of course is completely criminal, but they've done it. It's happened. I know of, not personally the people, but I've heard of cases, and been on study groups where the discussion was of people, people who had that happen to them, where they just cut their power to their house, or the utilities, the water. But I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just bringing that up as a kind of a heads up. There'll be, there may be more to the fight than you're expecting. With that, I will yield.
Thank you, Doc. Well, any other bright spots or anything people noticed this week that was interesting?
Just that a lot of crap is starting to hit the fan, and hang on tight. It's going to get more interesting.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea going around.
That's what we need.
We do.
It's a good thing.
And if did you catch when Anna said last night? Craig was just mentioning that she said, or Monday night, that the IRS should be just about done here in 4 to 6 weeks. And if that doesn't get people's attention, holy moly,
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
That should do something. Waking them up.
Well, I'm going to sign off, folks. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks, Doc. I guess we got to call it a day or a night, whatever.
Well, no, just because I'm leaving, I'm not the party. You guys had party on, party on.
Party. Dave already stopped, so here I'll stop the recording.